Welcome to Straight Talk for Entrepreneurs, where we reveal what it really takes to build a successful business. Whether you are starting with an idea or growing your business, this is the show for you. My guests and I will show you how to build a strong mindset, a powerful body, a profitable business. Hi, I'm Brandon C. White, and this is Build a Business Success Secrets.
There's Brandon.
Right on, man. Thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having me. Gosh, you'd ride around in my truck so often. I hear you all the time. Now I get to actually interact with you. It's so cool.
Well, I appreciate that. I didn't know you were a listener.
God, of course I listen.
Right on. Well,
pay attention.
Well, cool. How's Oregon today?
It's awesome. Yeah, it's decent temperature. I just heard something really, really interesting. And being down in California, I had somebody in Utah I was just talking to, and he said, "I'm in Utah. It's a eastern suburb of California," so I'm going to start saying it. I'm going to say I'm up in Oregon, the northern suburb of California.
Well, don't blame us if people start coming to your town.
I try to tell them we're full, but they just keep coming.
They do. I heard they're exiting, but they're also coming to the coast apparently. So I don't know. Oregon's a good spot though. You guys got good weather.
Yes, but I don't want you guys to know that.
Yeah, well, I will say beautiful. This. I spent a lot of time on a project in Eugene.
Oh.
And when it was nice, it was nice. And when it wasn't, it wasn't.
For real. Yeah. It gets nasty probably about October. And then about July, it gets really beautiful. July, August, September, great time to be in the valley. After that, not so much.
Well, the fly shop there has a tap that opens at 4. So it was right there off of Main Street. So and when it wasn't nice outside, there was a place to go.
There you are. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, thanks for joining. You know, I've been excited because you have a really, I'd say, I was riding the Peloton today. I was like, is it interesting? Is it unique? It just sort of happened. And you've had such a diverse background going from, I want everybody to hear how you went from being a dive instructor and how you wind up that. And then you found this company that I have right here, Hydroflask, somehow in your spare bedroom, effectively, and that's a great inspiration for people out there. So, can we go back to like the beginning, because I know you have an interesting story too about somehow your mom was had a vineyard.
Oh well, kind of yes and no. My mom and dad owned the land that was to become Willamette Valley Vineyards. They were 3 owners prior to what it is today, which is Willamette Valley Vineyards. So my grandpa had purchased the land as a sort of a wedding gift to my parents. And however, they got divorced pretty quickly thereafter. And when my dad took off, my grandpa sold it to a woman who said she was going to put in a vineyard. And they said, no. There's no vineyards in Oregon. Grapes only grow in France, not Oregon, France. And I don't know if it's true or not, but the story goes that they pretty much laughed her right into the loony bin. I don't know if that's a PC way to say it these days, but you get the gist of what I'm saying, the insane asylum or whatever. She then sold it off to the people who took off and started Willamette Valley Vineyards. Yeah.
That's incredible. And what do you think that's the first winery in Oregon?
I would say, I don't know if it's the very first, but I would say, as far as I know, as being an Oregonian, it's definitely the first that was on the map. There might've been a little bit smaller ones here and there, but it was definitely the first that had a full blown, just awesome tasting room and swag to sell. Merch.
So they go from, because we can't grow grapes in America.
No, right. Only France can. We all know that.
Yeah, of course. So then what happens after that? You like your mom sells it, but you're still in Oregon.
Yep. So my mom and I stayed in Oregon. She got remarried to a Vietnam vet who had PTSD, Agent Orange exposure. Not one of the most friendly of souls at that time anyway. And, had two brothers. I had my two brothers, and then my mom having three boys. She always wanted a daughter, so she took off to Romania and to go to the orphanages to go adopt my sister. Well, she didn't quite make it to the orphanage. She found a Romanian gypsy right there near where she was staying and adopted my sister. So there were four of us in my mom's house, and times were tough. I mean, we got by, but I definitely learned to hustle at a very young age and buy my own Air Jordans. Yeah.
How'd you do that? Were you selling lemonade?
I was just thinking about this the other day, and the story I haven't really told before, but I figure like the statute of limitations is up, so I can kind of tell some of these stories. The first kind of hustle that I had was I got held back in first grade because I started first grade too early, and they changed the law from September to October 5 to 6 or whatever the numbers were. So I did a fun run the first year of first grade, and I kind of got the hang of it. I don't really like running. This sucks. I don't really care about making money for the school. I'm not really into it. The second time I was in first grade, there was a fun run in the fall, and I was like, okay, I got the hang of it. I know what to do. So we lived on a hill. The governor lived at the top, the governor's mansion. Down here at the bottom was the homeless people, the train tracks, but it was flat, and we lived right in the middle. So I went down the hill on the flat area and walked trying to collect money from the fun run. I didn't do very well because nobody down the flat area had any money. Go back, and we'll call him Little Johnny because his name is John. Little Johnny lived at the top of the hill, and he like cleaned up. He won the pizza party. He won all the ice cream. And so I was like, okay, well, he lives up in the rich neighborhood. I was down the poor neighborhood. And so in the spring of my first grade, as soon as we got the form that it's fun run time, and I put air quotes around fun because it was never fun, I went straight up to Little Johnny's next door neighbor and hit her up before Johnny could get there. And I kind of worked my way out of that one house. Like literally, I used his house as like the pivot point for everybody else. And he still won. And the way he won was he had his dad write a check. And that's how he came up with the most money. So I'm like, fucker, I'm sorry, my language. He cheated. So
we like to keep it real here.
Sorry. So the next fun run, I was like, all right, I don't really care about the school because no matter what I do, Johnny's going to take it. So I did the same thing though. I went right up to the next door neighbor's house and I said, hey, look, I think what you should do is sponsor me per lap instead of a flat fee. She says, well, how many laps are you going to do? I said, I don't know. Look at me. I don't really run, maybe 5 or 6. I don't know. I just kind of trot. And she goes, well, okay, how about, $2 a lap or whatever the number was. So, okay, cool. So I go from door to door, just doing this plan of, just pay per lap and we should be okay because I'm not going to really run. So fun run comes and I'm not having fun and I'm not running. And they entrusted me to write down how many laps I had done to go out and collect. And so what I did is I made a copy of it. And on the one from the school, I wrote down 5 or whatever it was. But the one that I took out to the rest of the world to go collect my money, I put like 25 or whatever the number was. And I collected all of that money for myself and gave the school based on what the number was on the original one. And so little Johnny won, he got the pizza, he got the ice cream, but I got the Air Jordans. And so I think,
Mary, you got the prize.
I got the prize. And again, it's only because the statute of limitations is up. And since then, my karma has come back. I've had millions of dollars stolen from me over the years. And so, it all came around, but that kind of was my first sort of hustle was the fun run. We'd get candy bars for Little League and they were 50 cents and I'd sell them for $1 and keep half the money.
Well, that was smart because you're smarter than I, because I ate all those and I picked the ones that had the most almonds.
I did love those almond ones. Gosh, those were the best.
I would feel the bottom of those things and I was like, oh, this thing's got 3. They probably all had the same amount, right? Because they were hidden, but I always wanted, I don't know how that worked. My poor mother, but they were good.
Back when chocolate was chocolate, right? Like that's when it tasted good. Yeah. It's not the plastic wax that it is today.
No, I'm a big chocolate fanatic.
Have you had a Cadbury egg lately?
No,
shite. It's awful, terrible. Oh. We had one yesterday, my daughter and I hated it. She loved it, but she's 4. She doesn't know what it was like back in 1980. You know?
Yeah, like things were, I feel like, I don't know about you, Travis, but it's like one of those things where you say, oh, back when we were kids. But you know what? I don't really care, because the truth is, back when we were kids, the food was real, right? Things were, I don't know. It just seemed.
The play was healthy and outdoors.
Yeah.
Right. The adventures. Yeah. Adventures.
What was that?
I just was thinking adventures as you were talking about riding your bike. Yeah.
Yeah. Like go out and build a jump. Yeah. I mean, I don't know, man. It was different.
Pre-helmet too. There was no helmets back then.
No, I actually feel bad. I gave my brother once a bike that really, we used to take them apart and put them together. And I was like, oh, it's fine. Rode it down the hill and broke his arm. But
statute limitations.
Oh, I've always felt bad about that. I was like, Mom, my little brother broke his arm, but he healed and he's fine. He's still as mouthy as he was. So, what are you going to do? So you figure out that you can make a profit is basically what really happened. So then what?
So then my grandpa came knocking on the door when I was 14, and he said, hey, do you want to meet your dad? He's down in the U.S. Virgin Islands. And I was like, yeah.
How old are you?
Right now I'm 42.
No. Wait.
Oh, back then 14.
So like your grandfather, you're 14 years old, and he says, do you want to meet your dad? What are you thinking at that moment?
If I have an opportunity to get out of Salem in the wintertime, yes, please. Yeah.
Fair answer.
I had no idea. I thought I was going off to a completely foreign world. And in a lot of sense I was. I mean, I really honestly was. And this was way pre 9/11. So you could put a kid on the airplane and just send him off into the unknown. Ended up in St. Croix and met my dad, and he had scuba diving shops. So I was like, okay, here we are in the U.S. Virgin Islands.
Well, had you ever flown before?
When I was 12, as soon as my mom got divorced from my stepdad, I took off I sold everything I had. I had a TV and a bike, and I sold them both, made $99, bought a round trip ticket to Phoenix, went down to visit some long lost, far off, unknown cousin or second aunt or whatever it was. And I remember very vividly coming back on that flight at 12 years old. And there's this really attractive flight attendant who came and sat on my armrest and just chatted with me. I remember looking at it going, yeah, I'm going to do this more.
Fly more, become a flight attendant.
Mm-hmm. Well, I then became a pilot so much. Yeah.
Well, I want to hear about that. But I have to say, I think that flight attendants were nicer back then.
I think so too.
That's not a commendation to anybody listening out there that I don't like flight attendants. It's just that when I flew a lot, they were mean.
Yeah.
For the most part. Well, maybe not for the most part.
Kurt,
maybe you just remember the bad. Maybe you remember the bad ones. Right? I don't know.
Kind of like any business, really. You know, you always remember the negative experiences.
You do. That's true. You remember I find that, like, I get an email every once in a while on back from the email list of just mean. And what do they say? Hurt people. Yes,
right. Yeah.
Hurt people.
It's not always easy to remember that though when you get those emails, is it, Brandon?
No, I get them and I'm like, am I even doing anything helping people?
Yeah.
Right. But I think, yeah, you got to fight through that. I learned that lesson, but back to the Virgin Islands. So the difference between Oregon and the Virgin Islands is basically night and day. Do you decide to stay there?
I did. However, I was held back for school. They said that I had to go home and go to school. So I'd go down I'm getting major feedback. Are we okay?
Yeah, I'm okay.
Okay, cool. Um, yeah, I basically took off and every summer, Thanksgiving holidays, Christmas break, spring break, I'd go back down to the Virgin Islands. And then when I was 16, I moved down and I was like, okay, I'm here. I'm just going to go to the private school. Everything's good. I took the placement test for the private school and they said, no, you don't know math at all. And we're going to have to hold you back a year. And I'd already been held back once. And I was like, yeah, I don't want to be held back twice. So I returned to Oregon. I graduated on a Thursday, Monday morning. I was on my way back down to the VI.
Oh, cool. Is our sound okay now?
I'm still getting feedback, but I don't know.
Well, you can't talk like that.
It's okay. It's just a little distracting, but as long as it's working.
Oh, it's working, but I should be going through my mic. I don't know if that's on your end or my end. I got Rodecaster Pro. I don't know. If it gets real bad, we can reconnect. It could be Zoom.
Okay. Actually, that's better. I'm good now. I'm good.
Oh, okay. Right on.
Good or yeah.
I'm good. Yeah. All right. So you go to the Virgin Islands and what do you decide to do? Or did you have a plan or what?
Well, my dad owned, I think it was one dive shop or two. He ended up with like 3 or 4 and a grocery store. And it was extremely exciting because I'd never really been in. I would like, the joke was that it wasn't a third world country. It wasn't even that good. So we were only 2.5 world country. And I'd never really been in that situation before. The first time I ever got shot at, I was in 14 years old on that first trip or second trip. And
you got shot?
Did not get shot. And
why were they shooting at you?
Because well, the best I could tell, he says, we were coming down into Christiansted and there's a little bit of a bottleneck into the main town. And I was with some tourists in a rental Jeep and we come in and we stop at the bottleneck. I look over and this guy hops up and goes, "Hey, white boy, pop, pop, pop." Oh, and luckily the guy driving had the I don't know, the presence, I guess, to get out of traffic, go around and bypass and get us out of there. And it was exhilarating. It happened so quick too. I don't think there was really time to go, oh, we're dead. We didn't have that, but we took off to a fast food chain and had dinner and we were kind of shook up. And then as we were pulling out of the parking lot, he hit a pylon. And when we hit that pylon, I was in the back. I was like, oh, they're here to shoot us again. And that's when I got really nervous. I was really scared. All 3 of us just like stopped and like, oh shoot, they just hit us. Now we're going to get shot. And we looked back and it's just a pylon. Cool. And that's kind of how the VI went. The dive shop would get broken into quite often. And we finally got an alarm. And so every time the alarm would go off, we'd grab the artillery and head down towards the action. And I put some hair on my chest, I guess.
Yeah. I think when you see your life pass before you, you get perspective.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that was the first time. And it seems like it happened quite often, whether I was on the boats and I thankfully nobody ever on my watch ever died, but I would have people on other watches, other dive trips or other dive boats or parasail boats that had died, and we'd have to show up at that scene. And being around death like that, it really made me realize that you got to live while you can live, and because you never know when you're going to be on vacation and die. So, yeah.
So do you think that you learned things about retail that you later carried forward?
Absolutely. I think one of the first things I ever really learned was, I remember very vividly being in the gift shop one day, and my dad's colorblind, and I opened up a box of t-shirts. I was like, "Dad, this is the most ugly, disgusting color shirt ever." I said, I can't believe you'd buy these shirts. Like, please let somebody else be in charge of purchasing. This is not a good shirt. He says, no, that's the number one bestseller. He says, the cruise ship passengers love them. I said, oh, get out of here. He goes, watch what happens. I said, all right. So we bet, a couple beers or whatever. Sure enough, the cruise ship passengers showed up. They bought him out, and we sold out of the ugliest shirt I could ever imagine. And he says, you see that? It's never about what you want. It's not about you. It's about what they want. You don't know what they want. They don't even actually know what they want, case in point. However, if that's what they're going to buy, that's what we're going to sell.
So were you doing you were doing dives, like out on the boat, taking people diving?
Yes, I started out when I was 18. After I graduated high school, I started out as a dive master. And then I went to St. Thomas Belongo Bay Resort and became a dive instructor. Patty, 158190 is my number. And then did that for quite a while in St. Croix at Cane Bay Dive Shop, and then went over to St. Thomas, where I moved into Sapphire Beach Resort and worked in St. John at Bob and Anne Marie's Low Key Dive Shop. And then I eventually got my 50-ton. Well, I started out with a 6-pack and then a 25-ton, and then I moved up to a 50-ton U.S. Merchant Marine boat captain.
So you go from dive master to boat captain,
which is a very natural progression. Like it kind of caps out being a dive instructor at how many students you can have and how much money you can actually make. And I really enjoyed reading business books. I still do, but I wanted to read more. And so being a boat captain, I couldn't listen to the radio. I couldn't, there obviously no cell phones back in the olden days. And so I could read my books. And so I became a boat captain really so I could, hang out with the wives was part of it, but also read my books.
So how long do you do this boat captain thing?
I on and off, I say I was in the VI for on and off about 7 years. I left and became a pilot and then came back as a pilot and flew and captained and instructed and dive mastered kind of for 7 years.
What was your favorite business book that you read while you were being a captain?
I think The Millionaire Mind was kind of the one that this is cool. It kind of gave me a new perspective. The Millionaire Next Door was okay also, and some parts of that was better, but not maybe as good. But pretty much anything Brian Tracy. I think that he as an author back in those days was really spot on, and it really gave me a foundation and a business. That's where I got my business schooling, was from Brian Tracy.
What was the biggest lesson for you from that book?
Man, Brandon, asking the hard questions, aren't you? I would say take care of the customer and they'll come back. It's a lot less expensive. It's a lot easier to have a return customer than it is to get a new one.
Yeah, I think that's a great lesson. Did you just decide that, hey, I'm a boat captain, now I want to, did you fly a float plane down there?
I did. Yeah. I flew seaplanes. It did. It hit me in the back of the head. I just learned this word the other day, so I keep using it as my vocabulary word, cerebellum.
Huh?
Back of my head. Yeah, right. You didn't know that. I'm teaching you stuff here. Spitting knowledge. Hit my cerebellum and it came out, you're a pilot. And I was like, oh, fuck, I don't know what that means. And so I had literally just walked off of the yacht and I walked away from a 6-figure job. And I had $11, maybe $12 in my pocket. And I moved to St. Thomas, found a place, got down to the laundry mat, took my clothes in because I needed to go get a job. So I needed to wash my clothes. And while my clothes were washing, I went next door to the grocery store to get my macaroni and cheese and gallon of water. And as I was checking out, there was a magazine, like piloting magazine. And it was one of those moments in my life, and it's happened a few times where the lights turn on, the cherubs come and sing, and there's harps and the pretty maidens dancing. And I went over and I picked it up, and I was like, I held it up like I'd found the Holy Grail. And I was like, look at this, it's a flying magazine. And none of the St. Thomians understood that I was holding the magic golden ticket right there. And so I had to put my macaroni and cheese back to afford it, but I bought the magazine. I went home, I drank my water, and I read through that magazine, and I knew right then and there, I'm a pilot. And this was about August of 2000. And I got right then my great grandma died and her house was open. So I moved back. I had a free place to stay. Yada, yada, found out about student loans. And I was a pilot. September like 5th, 2001 was like one of my first flights. September 11 happened. That put a massive damper on life. Moved over to Bend, Oregon, kept flying, and went down to Arizona and started flying out of there, getting multi-engine time and some jet time. Came back to Oregon. I flew skydivers, which was a lot of fun. Really dangerous, really scary, and man, did I love it.
Why is it dangerous?
The plane I flew, I had taken over the guy's job who had augured or crashed before. He was flying a bigger Caravan, which I really wanted to fly the Caravan, but he crashed the Caravan, so I got his job. And then the plane I was flying was just a really, it was like a death box. And I used to wear a parachute myself. And it was like an old ass military World War II, Vietnam era. I don't know what it was. It was old parachute. I'd strap that on going, dang, I really hope I don't have to wear this or use this today. And then after I left, the next guy crashed the plane that I was flying. So yeah, when you open up a door and let people come out, sometimes they'll hit the plane or their chutes will open, and if their chutes open, it hits the tail. And then you just auger. I mean, the whole thing just goes down. So you got to hopefully get yourself out. And if you can, there's not a lot of hope for the guy who hit the tail, but you just got to get as far away as possible. Loved it. I just loved it. It's just dancing with death 24/7. And I became certified, started skydiving at that time, but then I really wanted to go fly the seaplanes for the airlines, went down to the Seaborne Airlines, and just by, one question I got in. The test was really difficult for me I'm a bit dyslexic when it comes to some of that, but.
So I call that a pivotal moment, by the way.
Which one?
Well, when you picked up that magazine and just knew, you just made a decision right there. Can't explain it. It just happens.
I remember the woman's face. The first woman I looked at, I was like, I didn't say it out loud because that would have been, too theatrical, but I was like, do you see this? And her face was like, what are you looking at me for, white boy? I was like, I was the only, and I thought, well, maybe this is just a race thing. Like maybe they don't understand, or maybe this is the St. Thomian thing. If I was back in St. Croix, maybe they would have got it. Maybe in St. John, they would have understood. But I've got this magazine that says that people fly airplanes and it's possible. It was amazing.
Yeah, I think it's interesting how you can remember everything during those pivotal moments.
It's like a hypersensitivity. Like I remember what I was wearing and everything about
it. It changes your life.
It does. Oh, big pivotal moment. You're right. You're absolutely right, Brandon.
Yeah, I remember I was playing lacrosse in summer league. And I actually, ironically, I did not know that about you, but I actually repeated the first grade as well.
And you're dyslexic.
And I am dyslexic. I still can't spell. It's embarrassing. But now I just tell people, hey, if I get to the whiteboard and I can't spell, I'm not dumb. I just can't spell.
Yeah.
But I remember, I can remember like you, I can remember the chalk on the sideline, and I saw this kid who his name's Derek Radeball, and I had heard that he was going to stay back and repeat his junior year. And I remember at that moment, I saw him on the hill. And at that moment I said, I am going to go to a new high school and I'm going to repeat my junior year because I just feel like that's what I want to do. I wasn't happy where I was. And honestly, Travis, the next day I drove to Boys Latin School in Maryland and they took me, and it honestly changed my life. But that moment, that like you're describing, I can actually remember that when I met my now wife. because I can remember her shoes. I can remember everything. So it must be. Do you think more people have these pivotal moments?
I think that I would assume that the vast majority of humans do. It's just, what do you do with it once you got it is the kind of decider.
Do you think it, well, I don't know about you, but there was not a doubt. Like, I wasn't scared. Right?
No fear.
Right? It was just, that is what I'm doing. So I wonder, I'm interested to hear if other people have that, because these pivotal moments change your, I mean, I imagine that completely changed your life. Maybe you never go on to do 6 other things or meet 5 other people.
Yeah. What did your wife say when you had that moment? What did she say then?
I didn't tell her I had the moment until later, but
what did she say? Did she have the same moment, or did she like,
that's a good question. Brandon? Maybe we should get her. I think she just came home from teaching dog school. That's a freaking good question. I'm going to ask her when she had her pivotal moment.
Yeah.
God, now you're like throwing down some deep stuff on here, Travis.
I'm sorry. I shouldn't be asking the question.
It's a great question. I'm going to ask her when, she was excited. I told her, I said, I was doing the Peloton before, and we've got an old dog, and I couldn't feed him right away because I was taking a shower before I got in here. And I said, she's like, when are you interviewing that guy who founded Hydroflask? I was like, in 7 minutes. And I need you to feed the dog when I get home, because I got to get on there. So I'm going to tell her that I'm going to figure that out, and I'll email you and tell you when that moment happens. So how long do you fly planes?
Oops, I just dropped my metal water bottle. I would say it was probably 7-8 years. I flew for the airlines. No, not that long. 5 years, about 5 years.
Why'd you quit?
I'd had enough, and I flew every single airplane that I had ever wanted to fly. The only one I didn't get to fly that I was a little bit bummed about was the DC-3, but it's a tail dragger, and I have not a fear, but a phobia, but not a phobia. It's like, I don't want to pay for a plane if it ground loops, if it flips over, and tail draggers have a tendency to flip over. And so that was one reason. We had a DC-3 flying out of St. Thomas when I was flying in St. Thomas, but I didn't fly it because the mechanic, who was supposed to be the airline mechanic, turned out to be a car mechanic and was using like Kmart parts on the airplanes. And so he's like, hey, you want to go fly the DC-3? I'm like, not this week, maybe next week when we get a real mechanic. And then I never got that opportunity again. Yeah, I flew a bomber. I flew all kinds of jets.
So you were typed for jets?
Yes. Yeah. Actually, I have more time in jets than I do in anything else, which is kind of a rarity.
Yeah. Did you ever fly a Mall 7?
No malls. No.
That's what I learned on a Mall amphib.
Is it the one that has like a big bulbous nose and your feet are like in the water? Is it that one?
No, not that one. The mall's like a Cessna typical, what is it, 152 or whatever. Okay. Anybody who's a mall pilot out there will probably just kill me for what I just said, but it's a more of a simple plane like that.
Okay.
But it is slow. I mean, you know how it is with floats but I had so much fun. I used to scope fishing holes. That's why I learned to fly.
Where?
Well, I was fanatical about fishing for a really long time. And in the Chesapeake Bay in the winter, all the tributaries in the bay are crystal clear. So my friend had this Mall 7, and he was an instructor, and I wanted to fly or whatever, but we would just fly at water level. I'm pretty low. And I would just mark all the places on the GPS in the winter, and then I would go back there when the fishing season started.
That's awesome. And those malls have fabric wings. Is that right?
Yeah, they actually do.
And
It scared the crap out of me.
yeah, and they would put dope on it, and it smelled like bananas. I remember reading about the bush pilots up in Alaska in the malls. I
Oh,
went. I had the option. It's like, do I go north and become a bush pilot, or do I go south and become a warm water pilot? And I went south, but yeah, I do remember those malls, and they had really big flaps too, so you could drop the flaps and you could fly really slow, and really big proportionate wings, and so you could really go slow.
we went really slow. I used to fly from Virginia Beach all the way up to there's a launch pad, I forget right now, where you can't go past government airspace, but we would fly the whole thing just really slow, and you could just see incredible. I mean, you know how it is. You can see incredibly cool stuff. But I haven't. Do you still fly?
No, no. It's a conundrum. I mean, I used to, I used to fly charter jets, and then after my exit from the HF company, I chartered a couple planes myself here and there, but and they'd always let me sit up front when I charter. I mean, if you're paying for it and you ask, they'll let you. But I don't want to pay $150 an hour to go fly around Central Oregon, which I've done, for hundreds of hours. So I'm kind of cheap like that. And I don't want to quit smoking, and I don't want to cut, smoking cannabis, and I don't want to cut my beard, and I don't want to get my medical back to go fly airplanes again.
That's fair. That makes sense. Yeah, I love it. But Half Moon Bay, fog, not instrument rated. What type of jets did you fly?
My lane was the Lear 35. That was the one I had.
That's a fast jet, right?
Oh, it was so cool. I remember so clearly the very first time. I'd actually gone through flight safety in Orlando. I'd gone through all the training and all the tests and everything to become a Lear type rated pilot. And yet I'd never actually even seen one in real life, which I didn't, of course, tell anybody that. But we walk out of the tarmac, and I've got my suit on, my epaulets, and here I am, a pilot. And I didn't even know which jet we were going to. And because the sim doesn't look obviously like an actual Lear, and the pictures in the book don't look like reality, but I have, I don't know, a couple thousand hours in Lears. Hawker, I had a guy who had a Hawker that I used to fly with.
That Hawker, what is that? That jet's dangerous, isn't it?
It is. Yeah, it's a big burly jet. It was like riding a bull. It was kind of like, whew, this is kind of fun, but kind of dangerous. And it was just kind of clunky. But then a Falcon was kind of similar.
Falcon 10?
Yep. And it was fast, and it was cool. And it was like one of the first, and we got to go international with it too, which was.
You took a Falcon 10 international?
Yeah, I got to go down to, let's see, I went as far as Venezuela, I've been to Venezuela, that whole other story with pirates and stuff, but got to Venezuela, and then I commercialed back, and they went on to South Africa.
Yeah, I am a Falcon 10 fanatic, only because I think it used to be the fastest commercial jet. I mean, passenger jet.
And it's the same size as a 707, which I always kind of got a kick out of. It's like people say, well, how big of planes did you fly? And I'd say, well, equivalency of a 707. And not everybody knows what a 707 is because they're a bit archaic now, but it's kind of fun to say that I flew something equivalent to a 7 something, right?
So I can't help but ask, when did you travel to Venezuela with pirates?
Well, I didn't travel with them, but when I was, we encountered them when I was probably 19. We had some Italians working in the dive shop, and they said, hey, we want to go down to this place called Los Roques or Marguerite Island, which is a really nice place to dive. So what they did is they chartered a boat out of the moorings in St. Thomas, in Tortola. So we chartered this catamaran, and I'm not a blowboat captain. I'm a power boat captain, but I do enjoy a little bit of hanging out on blowboats too. We bring it over to St. Croix. We just put all of the gear on it, and these two Italians took off to Los Roques. the Italians come in, they do their charter, and everybody left, including the two Italians. They took all of the money and they took everything, and they just left the boat down there. And the Morgans is going, hey, you're on the hook for this boat. Like, you got to pay for it or get it back to us. Well, it's in Venezuela. What the hell is it doing in Venezuela? You weren't supposed to go to Venezuela. Oh, no, we didn't say Venezuela. We said somewhere else. So Captain Casey, a boat captain out of St. Thomas, and I flew down to Caracas. And it was the first time I'd ever seen anybody with automatic weapons. Like, it was pretty intense. It was pretty cool. And that was a heck of a trip in Venezuela, but we should probably keep it under R-rated or no more. So it was a trip going to Venezuela. And my dad and his then girlfriend, now wife, came down to join us. And we, it was super sketchy. They're like, nope, you can't leave. The Italians completely screwed us over. Thousands of dollars and park fees and this fee. And they're just totally trying to get one over on us. So we're like, okay, we'll go through the system and we'll do the whole thing. And then we took off at like 2 a.m. and we just again, statute of limitations is over. We just took off, and we were on that first night, and we had 2 fast high-speed boats come up on us and circle us, and they were circling us. And so we turned off all the running lights. We turned off all the cabin lights. We had a flare gun, a baseball bat, and a machete. And my dad at that point, we had also smuggled a fair bit of Polar beer, because we got Polar beer for super cheap. And so my dad was just completely drunk. He was wasted, passed out. His girlfriend, Suzanne, she was completely seasick, and so she was useless. So it was basically Captain Casey and I up on deck with a flare gun, a baseball bat, and a machete. And they would zoom in, and then they'd stop, and then they'd circle, and they'd float, and they'd zoom in, and then float. And they did that for about 5 hours. And it was one of the most terrifying experiences of 5 hours of my life. And what made me really scared is that Captain Casey was scared. I mean, he's this old pirate, this old pirate, or not pirate, but he's this old boat captain, from back in the day. And to see him nervous about, and he told me, he's like, yeah, if they just dump us overboard and they show up in whatever port, they can say that they found it, and then they sell it, and that's how they make their money. I'm like, that's actually a pretty good, racket for them, but not great for us. Hopefully they'll put us in the dinghy and set us loose. And it's at that point we start looking for the dinghy and we realize we don't have a dinghy. So,
well, it was good for them, because if they went back to Venezuela, they were going to owe money on that boat anyway.
Wouldn't that be the ultimate karma?
Hey, you guys owe money. The government comes.
That would be a sad twist of ironic fate, wouldn't it?
That's crazy. So I guess they just were waiting for you to either jump off, give up, or something.
I don't know. I don't know what happened, but I do remember dawn came and they floated away sort of one last time, and we were just we were exhausted. It was
I've been exhausted.
Bad. We put up the full sails and we just booked it right back. And we were surrounded by a pod of dolphins at that point. And so it was just kind of like, yeah, it was beautiful.
Positive energy around you.
Yeah, it lifted. The harshness lifted, and that took over. It was awesome.
That's a cool story.
I haven't told that story before. That's good that you got that from me, Brandon.
They say I have a natural talent. My wife says that I just ask too many questions. She tells me I have to stop asking questions at 11. So then I do podcasts after 11.
There you go. Yeah, well, at least you got a schedule, a little bit of structure in your life. That's good. And a taskmaster to keep you on task too.
You got to adapt. So you quit being a pilot. Do you have a plan?
No, none whatsoever. I was living in Palm Beach, Florida, flying out of Fairwind Air Charter, Stuart, Florida. And they kept asking me to come in on my days off and fly. And I only had 2 days off a month. and I was living in hotels, eating in restaurants, and being a pilot is a lot of fun. Flying fast. I mean, like the first time I got in it, and we did a short field, full flap. We were cleared up to like 25,000 feet, and we just went boom and just took right off, just like a rocket ship. And it never really got better than that, And so every time after that was just switching the radio dials and, going through the motions, living in hotels. I met wonderful people, a lot of billionaires, a lot of celebrities, a lot of just really good down to earth people, a lot of scoundrels and crooks and people like that to boot. And I had a great time, but I had done that. The season was over. And so I said, I'm ready to go back to Oregon. And so I got upset with them one day when they asked me to come in. I'd been trying to book my day off. My mom was coming into town to visit, and they called me in. And it's like, no, we're done here. We're done. I've been telling you I'm off this week, and you're calling me in. You're not listening to what I need. So I moved back home to Oregon, to Bend, and started a fence company.
Did you save money?
No, gosh, no. Mm-mm.
You spent all the money you made?
I typically usually do.
Well, at least you're honest.
I've not been great with that. Like that, I probably could have picked up maybe some money skills had I been in college. I don't know. Maybe if my parents had taught me, maybe I would have learned. But I didn't really learn the money thing until sort of post-exit.
So you started a fence company.
Yeah, my girlfriend at the time, we were just sitting on the couch contemplating, okay, now we're here. What do we do? We had, probably about 2 or 3 months to live financially. And some guy just showed up in our backyard. We just moved into this rental house, and I was like, I guess I'll go see what he's here for. And he was there to put up a fence. And they were doing just beautiful work. It was clear cedar, no knots. It was just gorgeous, beautiful wood. And there were a lot of subdivisions going up. Californians were opening up the Northern Territory. And I said, well, are you doing all these subdivisions? And he goes, no, we just do 1 and 2 at a time, just real small. I said, well, do you want to do those subdivisions? And he says, no, we just want to keep it small. I said, okay, well, then I'm going to do that. How hard could it be? He just laughed. He's like, have fun with that, Travis. And I walked into the house. I said, we're doing fencing. And she said, okay. And so we bought 2 trucks, 2 trailers. We went up to Portland. We figured out, like, what do you do to, build a fence? And we started a fence company.
Did you run any numbers and figure out how profitable it could be or anything like that?
No.
Were you worried about that?
No, I had no money, so I wasn't worried about not making money.
I know,
but I was
but
going to go back to zero. It's like back to just today, But like that, what I mean? Like I was at scratch, and so if we went forward and then it turned out back at scratch, then it would have been a net, zero almost. I wouldn't have seen that as a loss.
Well, that's definitely a way to look at it, but it worked out.
So we did really well, and ended up selling it and made. That was my first time I made 6 figures. It's like, whoa, that's pretty cool. But what happened was 11 months in, it was a winter month. It was one of the harshest winters on been record in, 800 years or whatever the numbers are. And I said, I've had enough. I got to get out of here. I've got to go somewhere warm. I'm tired of this. It was really hard in the winter. So I took off to Oahu, and as soon as the door opened on the plane, I could just feel the aloha. And I called my partner and I said, listen, you can either keep the company or you can sell it. But either way, I live in Oahu now. And she said, Travis, where are you? Who are those people in the background? Are you drunk? Are you at the bar? What are you doing? I used to drink back then. It's like, no, I'm still on the airplane. I can feel the aloha. It's real. I live here. And I was in Oahu for like 9 days, like a long ass vacation to be in Waikiki, almost too long, really. Came home. We sold the company within a week because, again, everything was going up in the building sector, and moved to Maui and then moved on over to Oahu.
And was that a pivotal moment, like picking up the magazine?
It was, yeah, and it was kind of a hybrid of all of the best of all worlds, because I really enjoyed the Virgin Islands, but the Virgin Islands can be it can be very difficult. It can be a very difficult place to have a business and stay safe. We had friends killed, raped, robbed on the regular, and I love the Virgin Islands, and I don't want anybody to not go there for what I have just said, because it is a great place when it's a great place. But Oahu and the Hawaiian Islands were more American, but still paradise. And so it felt like a nice hybrid where we could actually do business with business people, and we could also live in the tropics.
Yeah, I watch the Waikiki Surfline Cam on a regular basis.
I can't watch that because I live here now, and I can't go do that right now because I've got a daughter until she's 18. I'm here in Deschutes County.
Were you surfing?
Mm-hmm.
So you surfed those waves in Waikiki?
Well, yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Not the big ones. I mean, I had a longboard. I wasn't a little, rocket.
Those are like gorgeous waves. I look at that all the time. I was actually talking about it the other day. But how long do you stay in? So do you get a job in Hawaii?
Well, so originally I went over to Maui, and then to become a business broker. And the business broker I went to go work with tried to sell me the company the first day I got there. And it's like, whoa, hold on, dude. Like, I'm here to learn business brokering from you. And he's, well, I'm selling it. I'm getting out of here. You should buy it. So I don't want to do that. So we moved to Oahu, and I started out as getting my real estate license to become a business broker, to broker business deals. And I didn't really like the guy, and I didn't really want to work for him, and I didn't really want to work for anybody. And so in the interim, I took a job selling, there was a fancy title, like exotic luxury pre-owned vehicles like Mercedes and BMW and Ferrari. And I was horrible at it because I knew the mechanics of the pretty car was not that great. And I didn't actually, my heart wasn't in it. I didn't want to sell something I didn't believe in. So I did that for like a month. I was like, no, I can't be a used car salesman. I know too much about the car to, look somebody in the eye and give them shake their hand and take their money. So somehow it hit me. I guess this was another one of those cerebellum moments. Signs, for some reason, there was a lot of sign shops. I kept hearing everybody has a sign shop in Oahu, and everybody had a plotter that would cut vinyl, and then they'd take the vinyl and they'd weed it, and they'd take that and they'd transfer it and they'd put it on the vinyl, and they'd say, beautiful banner, and I've got a sign shop. And so it's kind of like, okay, well, if everybody else has got a sign shop, let me take a stab at it and see how well I could do it. And so my girlfriend at that time, she and I went to Florida to a sign show convention, SGIA, I think it was called. And we just said, hey, how much does it cost to start a sign company? They're like, well, what do you need? And we're like, well, I don't know. Well, you tell me. Well, you've been in the sign industry for years. What do you need? I have not been in the sign industry for years or ever, but I know I hear the word plotter. And so I know I need a plotter. And they're like, oh boy. So, I mean, they saw us coming, obviously, and they sold us a whole sign shop. We went back to Oahu, opened up Oahu Signs and Screen Printing right there in Waikiki, Honolulu area, and had a lot of fun with it.
Again, didn't really do a plan. You just you just believed that there was demand in the market.
And that we could do better than the market.
That you could build a better product.
Better mousetrap, absolutely. Yeah. And I mean, just by getting a digital printer, we were already ahead of the game.
And it worked.
It did until my brother ran it into a wall. We were moving it from this room to that room, and he hit the printer on a wall, and it broke this little hairline fracture in this plastic part on the roller tracks that printed. And so when it would get warm, they would expand, and the whole thing would go, and it just mess up the whole entire 12-foot banner, and it would have to start over. And so we'd be there till 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. And I didn't know that it was a hairline fracture in the rollers until the day we sold it. And I was like, I looked in, I see that hairline fracture. It's a 25-cent part, and it cost like tens of thousands of dollars of, just redoing stuff. But when you asked if it worked, did you mean the printing company?
I did, but it's interesting that the printer didn't work too.
Yeah.
But did the sign company work?
It did. Yeah. And we learned a lot. I mean, I learned a lot about, Photoshop, printing banners, printing, brochures and business cards, and, working with agencies. We worked with a lot of the top agencies and just learned so much about marketing and graphic design in general, and just built up a really big, RGB versus CMYK and the whole side of business that I did not get at the fence company. I picked up at the sign company. And then one day I just had this kind of like sinking, sick feeling. And I said, it's all over, it's done. And we didn't quite know what that meant. And it was the economy had just crashed in the States. We had the 08, what happened in 08. And at that time, I was in Honolulu. I was thirsty. I went into a sporting goods store to buy a water bottle, and there were no water bottles on the shelf. And I said, what happened? And the guy said, well, we pulled them because there might be this thing in plastic. We're not real sure what it is, but it might not be good. And I said, well, who's going to fill up this shelf? There's this huge wall, and all the shelves were empty. There were only 3 bottles left, and the whole wall was just empty. So, well, who's going to do this? He goes, nobody. There's nobody to do this. Cerebellum. I will. I'll do this. And the guy laughed. But in the time that I said I will, and he laughed, which was just a millisecond, I saw the future. I had a vision of me standing up on the stage talking about these water bottles. And a decade or so later, I'm in UCLA, and I was standing there talking, and I had this like, oh, Jesus, like a whole deja vu almost moment.
So did you sell the print shop at that? Did you come back from that and say, hey, print shop's over, we're selling this, we're going to build water bottles?
Yeah. Yeah.
Literally.
Mm-hmm. Yes.